Well, police in Tanzania's commercial capital, Dar es Salaam, have fired gunshots and deployed tear gas on Thursday to disperse protesters. To further this discussion, let's welcome Dr Charles Sinkala, who's the international relations consultant. Dr Sinkala, it's very good to have you with us. So these types of violent scenes have actually become sadly synonymous with some post-election results in part of the continent. And the issue almost always a regime that does not want to let go of power or even share power or be inclusive of new leaders. What's your take on this bout of election violence out in Tanzania?
Thank you very much for having me once again. I think my take is the complete opposite of what is happening. I think it's a misunderstanding of the new discourse in the dispensation. What is happening in Tanganyika is not different from what is happening from elsewhere. It is a rivalry type of set where the left and the right are competing in terms of who needs to be on what position, and not forgetting that also when the lawbreakers they break the laws, and the constitution and the law enforcement officers pursue them, they tend that to be a political target, which is untrue. But nevertheless, these protests and the discourse that has come here now, instead of enjoying and attaining our political independence, which was attained as earlier days as we regained our independence in the African continent, to work together towards the attainment of economical independence has been thwarted because of the culture of people working together is no longer there. It is that person or me who's supposed to be in the government. And if that person whom they desire, either politically or through ethnic groups, it becomes a problem and a challenge to govern. And what we can see in Tanganyika is a completely dismanagement in terms of managing the affairs and failing to communicate to citizens on what is exactly happening. Those who are being prosecuted, the government is supposed to establish commission and communication that can ensure that citizens are well informed in whatever the decisions that the government are making.
Now that you mentioned that, Dr. Sinkala, of course, we've just dipped into the United Nations Security Council there that was convening that urgent meeting on the ongoing crisis that is unfolding in Sudan. Why are we still unable to resolve our own problems as well as conflicts as a continent? At the AU summit that was, of course, convened early this year, there was a commitment to try and come about with African solutions to African problems, but it seems like we're nowhere there.
Of course, Alicia, it's too late even up to now to regain that. Briefly, as I touched on the history, the African continent we regained high independence in the early days, as we have likely seen from the 1950s and 1960s. But we forgot to regain our economical independence, and we celebrated. Now we're still celebrating the independence, the political independence that has led to the dependence to the West and the East. But we forgot to regain our economical independence so that we can make the lives of everyone to be better. Now it is been too late, as I've mentioned, because the culture of working together, the humanism, the agitators of the independence of Africa during those days, the Kwame Nkrumah, Kenneth Kaunda, Julius Nyerere, and many others who worked together to get the political independence has gone. Now we are seeing these rivalry things that are happening. And this is where now the devil comes in. Yes, the United Nations and the Security Council has come in most of the time to find solutions for Africa, and Africa has also distanced herself to make sure that it finds a solution for herself. But there's a devil, the third party who comes in, the third law of governance, where the conflict, there's other parties, international parties who are funding certain individuals whom they desire that they should be leaders of those countries. In fact, just now they've condemned the elections and the elected president-elect of Cameroon, Paul Biya, that is very odd. What criteria do we need to have a president? What consistency do we need in Africa to govern ourselves for us not to be dependent on the West and the East?
Doctor, you call it political independence, but unrelated but relevant to this is the situation currently unfolding in Zimbabwe, right? Where there is current efforts to further extend an individual's rule beyond constitutional political policies. I mean, this is very concerning as it leads to these countries then being stuck in abject poverty, non-development, and the entire public and governance failing completely or falling completely to shambles while leaders sit and enjoy the proceeds. It's definitely not fair, Doctor.
Okay, as a legal practitioner there, Alicia, you hit me on the nail. Changing the constitution to the term of 7 or extending the 5-year term which has been gazetted, that's totally madness. I think Emerson Mnangagwa and all his cronies and the team who are trying to destabilize that country that has already been destabilized with the sanctions for the last 20 years, it's completely madness and it cannot be supported. I was with the view that leaders on the continent and neighboring countries such as South Africa, the big brother who's been looking after other small countries, which has been going through political tantrums, should have, already issued statements to condemn any leaders that would like to go beyond the gazetted 5-year term. Anywhere where we have seen constitutions, especially the South African constitution, which is a 1994, which is like a pillar and a beacon for hope and democracy in our continent, has made itself to stand by the 5-year terms, except the United States of America, who would like to be chosen themselves to do the 4-year term. But these are regulated in the Constitution, and none of them those reforms that we need and desire now.
Doctor, thank you so much for that meaningful engagement there. That is Dr. Charles Sinkala, the international relations consultant on the Tanzanian post-electoral violence after the exclusion of 2 major opposition parties.